In 1787, when America's framers created the Constitution, the word education was mentioned 0 times, according to the U.S. Archives. The website for the Department of Education states that it officially became a federal institution in 1867. The website also shows that this role as an observer only lasted until the passing of the Smith-Hughes Act in 1917. Since landing at Plymouth Rock, America prospered for almost 3 centuries with local school management before adding this federal influence on education. If anyone doubts the intelligence or sophistication of American youth before 1917, all one must do is read the diaries from soldiers in the American Civil War. There you will find poetic masterpieces unmatched by today's intelligentsia. It is clear that American education is in decline. There are methods for long-term improvement and means to mitigate the current damage. There are many reasons why this is the current situation. Evaluation of the education system is not systematic. Test scores have remained flat while federal funding for education has increased. Excelling schools have differences from the average public school, and the choice programs that have been successful were tried but have not been popular among political elites. Today, the most common criticism of U.S. education is we test so low when compared to other countries. Even if true, the question remains of whether this is a good way to determine an education system. Scientists might be content that American adults are more scientifically literate than Europeans and Japanese, as explained by Professor John Miller of Michigan State University. Doctors and engineers might find America's #1 position in technological innovation, as found in Harvard's report on competitiveness and stages of economic development, and find it to be a good determiner. And intellectuals who adore the Nobel Prize might see 309 of the 789 awards going to Americans and give credit to the education system. But when Washington hears we test so low when compared to other countries, they don't ask parents and local administrators for common sense methods and innovations. They start teaching to test. Since the move to centralized management, more power and money is found its way to the Department of Education. In 1980, we spent a total of $14 billion on the Department of Education, according to the U.S. government's budget history. At the time, test scores for 13-year-olds were 269 in math, 258 in reading on a scale of 0 to 500, as documented by the National Assessment for Education Progress. Following expert advice to improve the system, decided to contribute more money at the federal level. In 1990, the total contribution came to $225 billion. Math scores came to 270, reading scores came to 257. In 2004, $67 billion produced test scores of 279 in math and 257 in reading. And in 2008, $68 billion brought math scores of 281 in reading and reading scores of 260. Almost a 500% increase in federal funds over 28 years gave us a 2% increase in math scores and a 0.4% increase in reading scores. We were told that funding for the Department of Education is going to dramatically increase in the coming years with no fundamental changes proposed along with it. This new spill of funds began with the new presidential administration when they spent an additional $142 billion on education on top of the yearly budget without any new measures of efficiency or accountability, as Dan Lift describes. Some question whether there's much we can do outside of increased funding, but suggestions for new methods of efficiency are available. Merit pay based on improvement scores and parental recommendation. Establish one national standard and publish the results. Disperse federal funds only to the proportion of student population per state. Remove teachers that are known for bad results every 5 years, even if tenured. Reduce school districts to 20 highest populated cities and one per state. Eliminate federal requirements on how money is spent. Require student uniforms, and if students don't pass a grade, they should not move on. Implementation of any new method will take time, but there are new methods already being practiced that can save current students from the current transition, and that is school vouchers. With school vouchers, the federal government evaluates average cost per child for education per child per year in each state. After that number is determined, a voucher can be offered for a small portion of the cost and exclude households that make 14 times more the average cost of public schooling per child per year, since they would already be able to enroll in private education. We'll take an example from the currently implemented voucher program in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. spends an average of $26,000 per child per year in public schools, as reported by Andrew Colson. Each household is offered a voucher for $7,500 to spend on any non-public school. This reduces the burden on class size and helps funding requests within the Department of Education, since it leaves 70% of the funds within the system with one less student to provide for. Not only does this allow inner-city families to break the cycle of sending their kids to failing schools, but it also gives parents a choice of where their child is actually being educated, while new methods are being implemented at the public school system. In addition to the benefit of providing parental choice, there's also improvements in performance wherever it's implemented. The Education Resources Information Center issued a report acknowledging that in Milwaukee, those who took advantage of the voucher program scored 3 to 5% higher in reading and 5 to 12% higher in math. In Washington, D.C., students who used voucher program for the program's inception were estimated to be 19 months ahead of their peers, with parental satisfaction well beyond normal levels, as reported by the Institute of Education Sciences. Education sciences. Public schools in Sweden's long-standing school voucher program are obligated to enact new methods of efficiency to compete for preference of parents, as reported by Robert Holland. But enrollment, it should be no surprise that student enrollment in such programs has, according to Lisa Snell, skyrocketed from 2003 to 2007 by 84% in the United States. But enrollment doesn't equal acceptance. Most voucher programs are limited and available in select areas. Nevertheless, federal support for school vouchers is diminishing. Even after acknowledging the improvement in student performance and parental satisfaction with vouchers, one of the first decisions of the new presidential administration was to eliminate the DC voucher program, as acknowledged by Dan Lips. American leaders must recognize that the American education system is in decline, implement innovative ideas and new methods that are effective, and give parental choice to mitigate the current damage. We have no problem that lacks a solution. All we need is the honesty to recognize the problems and the will to implement the solutions. Are there any questions?
How do you implement merit pay, and why do test scores remain flat while federal spending on education increases?
Well, as students enter each new year of school, they're given an entrance exam. At the end of the school year, they're given an exit exam. How students change their test scores according to that would be an improvement score, and how teachers perform for those improvements typically remains at a constant rate for their classes every year. Year after year, it becomes obvious that some teachers are very effective and have good improvement scores. Some teachers are mediocre and some are ineffective. Improvement exams, along with parental recommendation and faculty surveys, can help determine which teachers are effective and ineffective. As for test scores and federal funds, the vast majority of federal funds must be spent in a certain way, and the problem is not all states have the same problem, therefore they do not require the same remedies. Therefore, as the federal government recognizes a problem in one state and implements a solution, that same solution might very well likely damage a different school in another state. Funding and influence should be encouraged at the state level and discouraged at the federal level.